So let's enjoy some wine for a good cause as we travel north to Yakima Valley in Washington State. And that's where you'll find Owen Roe Winery. And just north of me on your screen is where you'll find their founder and head winemaker, David O'Reilly. Hi, David.
Hello, how are you doing?
Very good, very good. So we'll get to the wines in a second, but first, we just want to find out a little about you. So David O'Reilly, what is that, Russian?
I'm Russian all the time.
There we go. Nice wordplay. Yes. So the Irish background. David O'Reilly. That's about as Irish as like Liam Neeson drinking whiskey. But you didn't go into whiskey making. You went into winemaking. Why?
I went into winemaking because I wanted to be. It had this intrinsic connection to soil, to be farming. And, behind the iPad that is our vineyard. And it's truly, you look at wherever the Irish, the diaspora of the kind of when the Irishmen left Ireland, they almost, exclusively went into farming everywhere around the world. And, I was only 14 when I left Ireland, but we went into northern British Columbia. We did subsistence farming, me and my 11 brothers and sisters. And I loved it. I just loved living off the land. We fished and we ate fresh food. And for me, it was just, growing something was kind of the essence of life. I mean, you watch it, you plant it, you get to experience it, you tend it and savor it. And I wanted to do something like that, with my family and for a living.
That's great. And speaking of family, you didn't quite get up to 11, but I understand you have 8 children of your own.
Yeah, my wife and I are blessed with 8 children.
And several of them currently, they've joined you in the winemaking business?
Yeah, we have our oldest son, who his first vintage, and I have some in my cellar up in our house. His first vintage he made when he was 12 years old. And it's delicious. It's really great. And then I have my oldest daughter runs their wine club, is great at marketing. Another daughter runs a tasting room. And then another daughter does label design and graphics. And so, it is one of the unique things about the wine industry. It's very, it's very creative. You can, it's not just about, hey, I'm a farmer, put on my farmer's hat and go out and plant. It's in all the way you can have people who, have expertise in, in finance, or in label design. And so they're all kind of getting their own, identity, and they love the business. And, thankfully, we're still part of it. And, our kids wake up in the vineyard every day.
Wow. I don't think I've ever said this, but I only have 3 children. And their focus right now is kind of mostly on trying to consume as much leftover Easter candy as they can, 24 hours a day. Yeah. But hopefully they develop some, they diversify in the future like your family. That would be great. Well, that's great. Speaking of namesakes, so Liam Neeson, he played the title role in Michael Collins, right? About an Irish patriot. But your wines are named after an Irish patriot from the 17th century. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. In the 1600s, Owen Roe O'Neill basically rallied the Irish and formed the Confederacy of Ireland in 1641. And it was basically to expel Cromwell and the Puritans from Ireland. And he was a relative of mine. His 2 leading generals were O'Reillys. He used the O'Reilly Castle as his base of operations against the Puritans.
Wow,
and he stood for principle and excellence, and that's why I really, even the historical connection, it was something that he had this ideal, and that's what why we named the winery Owen Roe. It's just we wanted to to hit this ideal of excellence and stand for something great.
Nice. So less about armed revolt and more about excellence.
Although we do shoot a few varmints every once in a while.
Yeah, well, you got to. Well, that's a great segue into the first wine we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to put it in the place of honor here. It's the 2016 Kilmore Pinot. Great. And, there seems to be a little bit of Irish history. I'm going to hold that right up to my camera for everyone here. It's a lovely photograph with some Irish history of its own.
So this is the Kilmore Pinot Noir, and the doorway is a Hiberno Romanesque doorway on an abbey in County Cavan in Ireland, and it is where Owen Roe is reputed to have been buried. And so in County Cavan, where our family is from, there are several O'Reilly abbeys, and we believe that this doorway was carved by my ancestors in about the 1300s.
Wow. Okay, there's some connection there. Great. So let's do a little pour. Great. And for everyone joining us on the live stream, this is the part where we want you guys to get involved. We'll do a little sip and say. So feel free. I see some people are already commenting. Feel free after we taste to kind of post some of your flavor reactions in the comments, and we'll see if you have sommelier level taste buds. So, in honor of our Irish guest tonight, Sláinte?
Sláinte. Yes. Don't you love Pinot Noir?
I do. So this is, I'm learning that this is considered the heartbreak grape.
It is.
Right? And normally that's tough anywhere, but especially this is in Oregon. And that's even harder to grow in Oregon. It sounds like the growing Pinot in the Pacific Northwest, kind of sounds like the plot to the movie Speed. If the rain's too soon, the grape blows up. If you don't get the sun gets too hot, the grape blows up. If Keanu Reeves makes fun of you, the grape blows up. So it seems like this kind of action thriller of making it. Can you tell us about growing Pinot in the great Pacific Northwest?
Yes. So, Pinot Noir, it's basically a winemaker's quest. I mean, it's the holy grail of wine grapes. And it grows really great in a few very select areas around the world. It can't be too hot, and it can't be too cold, and it can't be too, moist. It's a very thin-skinned grape variety, and, where it is, just basically the perfect climate, it's right that little band along that, 45th parallel. And so you have that in Burgundy, you have that in the Willamette Valley in Oregon, some really select areas in, cooler places in coastal California and down in New Zealand and Tasmania. But basically each of those areas, the common element is it's not too hot and it's not too cold. And the reason why it's the heartbreak grape is, you can do everything right. You can have the right soils, you can have the right clones, you can farm it beautifully, and it's thin-skinned, and you can get the temperatures during fermentation could be a little too warm, and it'll zap all the aromas. And it's just one of those grapes that it's very finicky, and you just have to treat it really well. One of the, we like to say that we extract flavor from skins, but we don't even use the word extract. We use the word coax, because we don't want to hurt feelings. We want to lure those flavors out. You have to be very, very gentle with this grape.
Right. Yes, very good. And then, speaking of the Willamette Valley, this is the Yamhill Carlton AVA, right?
Yeah.
So all of the vineyards there mentioned being grown in a silty clay loam. And that kind of sounds like an Irish toast to me. Silty clay loam.
That's right. Sláinte again.
What is that about?
So it's really interesting. Of all the grape varieties, there's several that really do express, the sense of what we say terroir, so the soils. And Pinot Noir, you can taste the Pinot Noir is grown in this soil type, this is a rain sedimentary series soil, so it's sandy soils. And as a result, our vines are dry farmed, and what happens is you get into August, and the the vines have the soil has no water retention capacity whatsoever. So you get this great skin to juice ratio, and this incredible concentration of fruit. Whereas you can go into a Jory soil, volcanic soils, and they have greater water retention capacity. The berries are bigger, and so you're going to get a totally different flavor profile. So in Yamhill Carlton, I tend to get darker notes, a little more, not to be a spoiler, but a little more kind of black cherry, cola, some savory notes, some spice. All of those are very, very prominent in this one, really perfumed.
Yeah, that's great. I think we had some people mention some of those flavors. So it's nice. Black cherry. Very good. Well, great. Okay. That is our first wine of the evening. Let's see here. And now, speaking of now we're going to go back to where you are in the Yakima Valley. And we're going to move on to the 2016 Yakima Valley Cab Sav. Here she is right here. And this also is interesting. Now we're in Washington, which I think can have some pretty harsh winters. But the Yakima Valley is in a unique place. So can you tell us a little bit about that and how this label fits into that?
So, here we are in the Pacific Northwest. We just went from the Willamette Valley in Oregon, and then basically a spine down the middle of both Oregon and Washington is the Cascade Mountain Range. And on the other side, on the east side of the Cascade Range, where we are, we get about 5 inches of rain a year. So it's incredibly arid, and it's really dry. So we get about 300 days of sun. But as you say, in wintertime, it can get bitterly cold. And as a result, you can only plant on hillsides. You can't plant on the valley floor because cold air will rush down in there, and it'll wipe out the buds by kind of early and late season freezes. And so you have to be very particular about where you plant. But as a result, you're on these hillsides where the cold air does drain down, and the soils are looser and more conducive to to farming specific grape varieties. We can talk about soils all day long because everything is really related to soils. And this soil type is volcanic. This is grown on volcanic ash and dust. It's just one of the grape varieties that you have to pay attention to because Cabernet Sauvignon does ripen late. And in eastern Washington, our average temperatures in the summertime are about 92 degrees here. So it's fairly warm. But what happens is we get this intense heat in the summer, so it just ripens this fruit beautifully. And then when the equinox hit, we start losing 15, 20 minutes of sunlight a day. And, by the middle of October, it's getting cool. And so what it does, it preserves this kind of late season ripening, preserves all these beautiful aromatics. So if you smell this Cabernet Sauvignon, what you'll find maybe unique to this area versus some other warmer sites is that it's very perfumed and it has a real generous texture to it. Because, we get this heat in the summertime, but then it's mitigated in the fall, so you're not really ripping out a lot of tannins out of the skins. They're very silky.
Wow, great. All right, well, everyone watching with us, let's post your comments for flavors below and cilantro.
Thank you.
Ooh, that is very nice.
Isn't that tasty? And what I love about we're fairly high elevation in Yakima Valley, so we're about 1,300 feet elevation, is that this grape variety gets fully ripe, but it still preserves natural acidity, and so you get these beautiful, bright, fruity flavors. As I say, not a lot of tannins, so warmer areas get much bigger tannins, more robust tannins. So you get these silky textures, and then this natural acidity really kind of balances and offsets and makes this wine really seamless.
That's amazing. And then, if you look real closely at the label, I don't know if we're blown out there, but you can see just in the corner there, a teepee. And this is from the Yakima Valley. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So we're right at the border of the Yakima Nation Reservation. So just down the hill, we have the Yakima River. So we're just right about the Yakima River. And that moderates some of the temperatures in this particular area. And when the missionaries came in the middle 1800s, they actually spoke about the land just right at the base of our hill where this photograph was. And they mentioned that the Yakima tribe used to overwinter there because the temperatures were always about 10 degrees warmer in wintertime. And as a result, we can actually plant grape varieties here, like, for example, Grenache, that is very cold sensitive. We can plant them here that, other areas, even, relatively nearby, can't do that because our temperatures are moderated in wintertime. So this was a photograph taken in the 1880s, and it's an actual photo of the teepees on the reservation.
No, that's really interesting. And nowadays, I think there's a sign on the way into Yakima that says, "Welcome to Yakima, the Palm Spring of Washington." And I don't know, you might have to shed some light on that. Is that because everybody in Yakima has a wet bar and wears Hawaiian shirts, or what is that?
It is the Palm Springs of Washington, and someone put that sign up about 30, 40 years ago, and we're still trying to find the springs.
Oh, good, very good. Oh, great. That's wine number 2. And then our third and final wine today that we're going to be talking about, 18, the Exambrus Syrah. Here we go. Much smaller label. And now this one, so you have you have extreme heat. Sometimes you have rain, you have snow to worry about. And then back when you did the original vintage of this, you also had another natural element to deal with, which was fire. Something that we here in Southern definitely relate to. So tell us how this original vintage came about.
So in 2002, the vineyard was totally surrounded by a wildfire. And this is right at harvest time. And I actually couldn't even get into the vineyard. The fire trucks were in the vineyard. The end posts were charred. I mean, it was literally, it burned some vines. And the smoke lingered in the vineyard and permeated through the skins of the grape. And when I first tasted the fruit, you couldn't really pick up a lot of smoky flavors, but as we were making the wine, it became more evident. And after a while, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this wine. It almost has a licking the ashtray type character to it, and that is not necessarily what you want out of a Syrah.
Right.
And as I was making wine, I was kind of intrigued by it because it did have almost like a cool climate smoked meat, character that you see out of Northern Rhone, out of Côte Rôtie. And, I was trying to justify making this wine, and I was kind of vacillating between dumping it down the drain and bottling it. And we went back and forth, and finally I was like, I can't afford to dump it down the drain. So I will put this little Latin expression on it, which is ex umbris. So umbris is the root word for umbrella, shade, and it means just coming, out of the shadows. And so I spoke about the wildfire in the back label, and we released it out to the market, knowing that it was going to be a flop. And to this day, it's my number 1 selling Owen Roe wine.
Amazing.
And what I love about the Exambrus, and I didn't know this at the time, but there are a couple of compounds that we now that we've had a number of fires, around, harvest time in wine country, when we go to quantify smoke taint, what we call smoke taint now, there are 2 organic compounds that we can measure, and those are actually naturally present in the Syrah grape. So Syrah is naturally smoky. And I didn't realize that at the time. I had that experience with cool climate Syrah. So we have embraced the smokiness. And but this wine, when you smell it, is obviously it does not have smoke taint, but it does have those kind of gamey characters that you see out of maybe northern Rhone, some warmer Syrah areas. What I love about this grape, here in eastern Washington, we get a lot of heat in the summertime, and then it cools off. So you get this beautiful ripe flavors and textures, but it's not all alcohol and it's not all tannin. It's actually incredibly textural. And so it's one of those, Syrah styles that I think is very much new world. And, when we put this into our customers' hands and those, who are on Instagram right now, probably experience Exambrus Syrah, and it's just a crowd pleaser. People love this wine because of, those gorgeous perfumes, those silky textures, a lot of fruit and spice.
Well, let's see. Cilantro, let's see if our viewers can pick up on some of those flavors.
Okay.
It's nice.
So, someone just had mentioned the gorgeous violet notes. When I'm in the vineyard, this vineyard is like right behind, the iPad.
Right.
I'm walking as we are getting, ripe, and I'm out there tasting the fruit. I wait for that burst of violet, and then I know it's time to pick.
Wow.
So,
well done.
Good,
yeah.
Great description.
That's very good. Very nice. Good. And so it even has a different color. I mean, I'm holding it up to, my iPhone light, but even if I hold it up outside, it looks like it has a brighter, a little bit more of a purple tinge to it. The color's more vibrant.
It does, and that's physical. I mean, the pHs are slightly lower, so you have, just a little better color intensity in the wine. And definitely there's no shortage of color in this.
It's wonderful. So that's great. So those are our three wines. What we want to do now is open it up to our viewers and have a question and answer. So we'll kind of try and pick out some of the questions that people may have for you, and I'll kick it off just to give people time to come up with their own questions. Question one, David: who would you choose to play Owen Roe in the Hollywood movie?
I don't know. I mean, I think Owen Roe probably because, he was altruistic, and he was a general at one time in the Spanish army, and he came back to Ireland. So it was probably someone noble. And then he was generous. He gave all of his generals a hogshead of wine, when they won battles and at Christmas time. So that rules out most of Hollywood.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's going to be Farrell. If that's his casting. All right, well, question number two. I have a feeling that you might be a little bit of a foodie. So what is your favorite Irish dish that you kind of locally source there and make? Oh,
it's pretty easy. For us, we have in Eastern Washington and Ellensburg, they raise these gorgeous grass-fed lamb. So, leg of lamb. I ate more lamb in Ireland than we did beef. And so I love good lamb. I love lamb and Syrah. I think the kind of the richness of Syrah and the intensity and flavor of roasted lamb on the grill with some rosemary and garlic in there, it's just a perfect match.
That sounds lovely. And my final question for you, who is the greatest Irish philosopher? Because I think you were a philosophy major, is that right?
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
Is it George Berkeley, Francis Hutcheson, or Bono?
I'm gonna have to ruminate on that. Because I've never really had much. I haven't read a whole lot of what Bono had to say. So,
well, so now I have some of the questions from some of our viewers that are watching. One of them was, what type of oak barrels do you use?
So the barrels are right behind us here, and So over the years, we've embraced trying to, go out to our local craftsmen, and, our barrel racks are made, these stainless steel racks are made in Walla Walla, which is in Eastern Washington. We've looked at American oak from different forests from Virginia and Wisconsin and Kentucky. And we really wanted to use them, but, we're all about texture and finish. And so it's almost exclusively, it's French oak. We do like the fact that our wines tend to not have any more than about 18% new wood. So we don't like to have that dominate as a flavor profile in Owen Roe wines. So, but overall, it's usually like the Allier forests. And, we do use a number. We have about 10 different coopers that we use. So the ones behind me right now are Allery.
Wow. Okay. Great. And let's see one more. This is a question I often have too. So I know that in my little small understanding of wine, Pinots obviously are meant to be drunk. They're young wines. What about the ones that we've tasted? How long? What's an aging time for them?
That is a great question, and truly, it is what I think makes a wine great. Is that it tastes good today, but it should stand the test of time, and it should age. And so I can pour you, and I've done this during the holidays. We opened up some, 18-year-old Syrah, Exambrus Syrah, the first vintage. The 17-year-old 2003 is drinking great. My first vintage of Cabernet. So in this Cabernet, we have iconic vineyards. The oldest block at Red Willow, the 73. So Red Willow is just this beautiful vineyard farmed by an amazing family. So Red Willow Vineyard, DeBrule Vineyard in Yakima Valley, again, farmed perfectly. And some of those early vintages I thought would probably age about 20 years. But now that I've tasted the 99 vintage, I think they'll probably age another 20 years. So you're talking about these wines, because they have natural acidity, and it's one of the beautiful aspects of making wines where, you get these really cool nighttime temperatures and the acid stays in the grape. So some of these have aged really well. And even the Pinot Noir, even though I think this 16 is drinking beautifully right now, and really it's just, it's maybe at its, peak if you like a fruit-filled Pinot Noir, if you like more secondary notes or tertiary, more like orange peel, it can still age another 10 years. So these are wines that we want people to buy cases of them and drink them today. But, you can also put them in your cellar and enjoy them for many years.
Great. Yeah, and I saw that the wines in the grapes in Yakima Valley, I think it was maybe on your site where it said that they were some of the most sought after fruit. Do they come with like a side of toilet paper? Why are they so much in demand?
I've never asked that in our contract. I might have to put that in there.
I want to consider a ride.
They're in demand because you just can't get them. There's not a lot. A lot of these vineyards are small little blocks, and most of the vineyard sizes that I work with are about 10, 15 acres. They're really small, and they're all family owned and farmed.
Wow. Oh, there you go. That's what makes them so valuable. So I'm going to bring out your wines for a little bit of a curtain call here. Just to remind everybody, of people that maybe joined late, tonight we tasted a Pinot, we tasted a Cabernet Sauvignon, we tasted a Syrah, and I know that Owen Roe has a lot more varietals and labels. Any shout outs that you wanna make?
It's always hard to pick one out, but I would have to say that one of our favorite varieties is Cabernet Franc. I love Cabernet Franc. It goes great with braised meat. So our Rosa Mystica Cabernet Franc is a must-have wine.
Very nice. That's a good shout out. Great. So for everyone watching, thank you for joining us. Remember, if you're not a wine club member, become one if you want. I can attest to, in a quarantine, how lovely it is to have wine delivered to your door. You can also, if you want to venture out bravely, safely, you can find them using product codes from the website. You can find them in stores. You can buy them online. And just a reminder, all of the purchases from these featured wines portion of that goes toward relief for our tasting room and restaurant employees. So it's for a great cause. And on behalf of myself, David, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Derek.
Very nice. All right. Cheers, everyone.